everybody. Module 6. Hard to believe we're already on Module 6. So I still need to grade your assignments for Module 5. So I'll be doing that Thursday. I'm going to look over your chapter and article reflection. And then I'm also going to be grading your video teaching reflection, the ELA lesson that you taught. So I'll be doing that. So hopefully I'll have those done at least by Thursday evening. But today I'm going to talk about Module 6. And so I know that many of you are going to be off for Thanksgiving. But at Southeastern, we're continuing on. You will have things to submit this week, even though I know it's the holidays, because if we don't do 6, 7, 8, we won't have time to graduate. So I'm going to start by sharing with you what we're going to be doing today. So this week isn't a really huge week when it comes to assignments. You have 2 assignments, and so I'm going to share that with you. The first thing is for the learn, if we go here to learn, you are going to read chapter 6. And this is a really interesting chapter. This is about visual language. I'm going to talk to you about that here in a second, and how to view and visually represent. And so this class is about the language arts, right? But I want you to understand that language arts is also visual representations. It's visual literacy. So you're going to be looking at that, reading about that this week. And here's your discussion prompt. Chapter 6 explains the importance of visual literacy. For this week's discussion board, you need to show a visual image of a children's book. It could be a nonfiction text. It could be poetry, be any kind of visual imagery. And your textbook talks about different ideas for teaching visual imagery. It could be fiction, or it could be nonfiction. Political cartoons are example. Symbols are examples of visual imagery. Pictures. So you will show that image, and this is going to be a video response. It's not going to be just you writing it. You need to do the video. And then on page 166, it talks about what are the steps when viewing images. So it talks about things like, first you need to look at the image, analyze the image, interpret the image, and then draw conclusions about the image. So you need to draw conclusions and reflect on your interpretations of the image. And so I just wanted to give you an example, and I want to share a book with you. And I'm going to move my camera down here so you can see it. So this book is called I'm in Love with a Big Blue Frog. And this was actually performed by Peter, Paul, and Mary. So we know contextually that's going to tell you a little bit about the 60s, right? So I'm looking at this, I'm looking at the cover, but I'm going to show you, and I just want us to look at this one picture for a minute. Let's take a minute for you to view it. So if you were showing this to your class, you would talk about, what do you notice? What do you see in this picture? One of the things that I can see is that the big blue frog and the woman, they kind of look at each other adoringly, right? Looks like by the dress, we can see the similar dress that we have now, but you can kind of see it's kind of that 60s vibe for that image. So if we were going to, I can see artistically as a lot of color, doesn't it? So what do you think the author's purpose is in showing this picture? Now I want to show you another picture from the book. This is actually 2 pages. Okay, so here we go. Let's look at this. We can definitely see on this image that they're kissing, aren't they? So that's showing something. But let's look at the other side closely. We see the 2 pandas, and if you look at their expression, They do not look too happy, do they? Another little thing I can see here is that it has Dr. Frog, PhD. So with this, it's important that we look at, of course, this is a big visual space, but we also know that this actually says a little bit too, doesn't it? Kind of the not so nice look on the panda. I know I'm showing you more than one picture, but I think I'm going to have to. Okay, here we have another one. Here we have the frog and the woman. We have our sheep are together. Okay, it looks like some raccoons maybe. They do not look happy, do they? Okay. So what is it that you think the authors are trying to show? What's the message that the picture is giving us? Let's try to draw some conclusions. If we didn't have any words but just looked at the pictures, what are those images representing? So when you think about visual literacy, this is really one of my favorite books because it's actually about interracial marriage. Peter, Paul, and Mary wrote it in the 1960s. If you look it up and Google it, it's called I'm in Love with the Big Blue Frog, and it's a song. And they wrote it as a way to talk about civil rights. They were very concerned with that. And it was kind of a funny way to talk about interracial marriage. So I shared this with my college students, and one of my students said, well, that's kind of a stupid book. It took them a long time to interpret the pictures to understand what it was about. They actually had to read it 2 times. And after the second read, they're like, oh yeah, now I understand what it means. So this week, again, we're talking about visual literacy. So I want to share something else with you. This is going to be, hopefully it'll be a good website. So for your assignment, you're going to do the same thing. Take one picture, one illustration. It could be any kind of image, and you're going to go through those steps on page 166 with us through a video. I will also be sharing this website. It's a good website that has the Common Core standards for integrating visual information into language arts. If your state does not use the Common Core standards, I would like you to go to your state standards and see what are the visual literacy standards. So some of those standards. And also when you do your book or when you show your image, tell us what standard you're working on. So here we have some examples. It talks about the importance of doing think aloud. So of course we're going to do think alouds when we teach comprehension, but we also need to do a think aloud when we teach about visual literacy, as we are explaining our thinking of interpreting the meaning of the picture. And so this gives us some ideas, like you can say, what do you notice? What do you see that makes you say that? What more can we find out? I will also be sharing this video. This is of a classroom teacher using a picture to draw out meaning of visual literacy. And again, she asks things like, what do I see? What does it remind me of? What's the author's purpose? And then now, and so what? It gives you activities to do as you're teaching visual literacy. And here are all different kinds of little activities. You can do a photo analysis, a cartoon analysis, a motion picture analysis, a map analysis, and a poster analysis. All of these are things that you need to visually analyze, because we are just inundated with visual representations, and we need to know how to interpret those. And it talks about you have a literal interpretation, but you also have where you have to use an evaluative interpretation. I love this. This is a video, but it's also a picture. It's a very famous picture. This is in 1957. This is Elizabeth Eckford and Hazel Bryan Eckford was one of the first African-American students to attend the school in Little Rock, Arkansas. And in this photo, you can see her entering, and then look at the picture. So I want you to think about all that you can teach just through this one image, of sharing this image with just the hatred of Miss Bryan as she was going into the school. And so this would be a great example of looking at a literal observation first, then you're going to go into the interpretive phrase, and then the application phase. And so I'm hoping that you will be able to utilize this website for ideas. We don't always think about visual literacy, but it's very important. And I think in 2024, it's even more important than ever because we're constantly looking at images. And so today, again, you have 2 different assignments this week. One is to show us a visual image. You have lots of different choices. You can use pictures, diagrams, maps, all different kinds of things that you can use. And then you need to videotape yourself going through that process on 166. You need to continue to do your chapter reflection, and that we've been doing every week. So no huge assignments. Your next big assignment is in Module 8. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time talking about that now, but you might want to go on to Module 8 and be looking at that assignment. That's assignment where you're going to be looking at a lot of class data that we will be giving you, I'll be giving you, and you're going to be putting kids in groups, instructional groups, and explaining how you're going to be teaching the language arts and given that data. The other thing I want you to look is on page 165, it talks about a lot of visual language software that you can use. Things like Animoto, Flickr, Glogster, Pixton, Prezi. There's so many different visual language software tools that you can use. And then there's lots of digital learning games. So I would encourage you to check that out. Also on page 167, it gives a lot of different books and artists that you can use if you are teaching visual imagery. So again, a different way to think about reading, but it's a very important part of reading, and that's the interpretation of visual literacy. Okay, that's it for Chapter 6 or Module 6. I hope you have a great Thanksgiving. And if you have any questions, please let me know. If you want to meet virtually for any reason, let me know. Have a good day.